Hello, everyone. We're back again, and this time we're successful. So, my name is Dr. Sneha Ru. I'm a palliative physician and founder of Ori Kalankini. Ori Kalankini is an organization that's changing narratives around menstruation and sexuality in India using art, theater, and dialogue. This series is called Leaning into the Network series, where we bring people from different parts of our network to talk about their work, the concepts that are dear to them, and then the specific COVID relief efforts they might be undertaking. And I'm super thrilled to have Neha Singh with us today. Hi, Neha. All
I
good?
well,
Yeah,
I can't see you, but I can hear you.
I can see you. I think we should go ahead with this and
Yeah, I
then
think we
find.
should just go ahead. It's fine. I'll make it like an audio call. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like but you're visible and audible, so
Okay.
that's the most important thing.
Yes, yes, yes.
So we asked the people who come to speak with us the same first question
Mm-hmm.
is, when were you made aware of your gender? And when was the first time you were told that, okay, look, you are a girl or a boy, or you know so when was it for you, and how was that experience like?
Well, I'm sure there must have been many incidents before this one, where it was like casually I was made aware, but maybe I was a little too stupid to understand because there was an incident that happened when I was in class 8, which I think is very late, especially for a girl growing up in North India. That me and some of my friends, both boys and girls, we had decided to go and watch a film in a theater after school. And what happened was that all the girls dropped out of the plan, but I chose to go anyway. So there were like five guys and me. And I didn't think there was anything odd with that because we were all like school friends and we all would play together, study together. So I didn't think that I should not go just because all the other girls are not going. But so I went and I watched the film. I went and I watched the film. It was the film was I think DDLJ or something like that. And when I came back home, my mother asked me, I mean, who all had gone for the film, and I said, those five boys and me.
Hmm.
And she was like shell shocked, and she's like, why did none of the girls go? And I said, I don't know, something or the other happened and they couldn't come. And then she told my father that she went with five boys to watch a film. And then my father like really scolded me and said that if none of the other girls were going, then why did you go? So I said, but like five of my friends were going.
Hmm.
And my dad was like, but they were all boys and you were the only girl. So I think that's the first time I realized that I shouldn't have gone, because even though they were my friends, they were all boys, and I shouldn't be trusting an all boys group where I'm the only girl, and I should only go outside with my friends only when there are more girls going. So I obviously felt very guilty. I felt very stupid. I felt like I had done something very, very wrong, and something that I should have known not to do, because it was so
Hmm.
apparent, but it was not apparent to me. So since that day, I started following that rule, that you go only when there is a mixed bunch of boys and girls, not when it's only boys. So I think for me,
Hmm.
that was like a big hit. And that's when I realized that, okay, I'm a girl.
Wow. You're the founder of Why Loiter,
Yes.
Mumbai, and I think there's a thread from going to places where you're not allowed to go to becoming the founder of Why Loiter.
Yeah.
What is it about, and what does Why Loiter do? Like,
So Why Loiter is a women's right campaign, a movement which basically encourages women and practices loitering in public spaces and in spaces that are generally considered unsafe for women, specifically at times that are considered unsafe for women to be out, wearing things that are considered risky or dangerous, or calling for attention, doing things that women are not supposed to do in public spaces, like lying down, sleeping, just chit chatting, having a chai at a tapri, or singing, dancing, laughing very loudly, uh, sitting with our legs wide open, things like that. So basically, doing all the things that we've been told not to do since childhood, and with mostly without reasoning, without any reasoning given to us, like why are we not supposed to do this? Or the only reason given is it's not safe. And also that you are responsible for your own safety. And if something wrong happens, then it's your fault because you weren't careful enough, you weren't safe enough, you were too rash, you were careless, you were reckless. And that's why that thing happened to you. So basically, we're trying to change that narrative and put it on its head and say that the city belongs to me as much as it belongs to anyone else. And nothing should happen to me, just the way nothing happens to men when they roam around at night wearing whatever they like or not wearing whatever they like, sleeping on park benches or on the railway platform or in parked buses, without any fear, without even considering that any physical or sexual harm could happen to them in that kind of a situation. So we do all those things, we take those risks, and we go out and we're like, you told us not to do these things from childhood and nothing changed. It was still unsafe. Being at home was unsafe, being in school was unsafe, being in college was unsafe, roaming around in the daytime was unsafe, wearing salwar kameez was unsafe, sitting with legs crossed was unsafe, being with relatives was unsafe. So then how are you saying that if you do this, then it will be safe? Because nothing is safe. So at least let me enjoy my life. Let me go out and have fun. And I'm not even asking you whether you should let me. I am going to do it. And I will take the responsibility of the risk also. Because I'm in any case taking it.
True. Yeah.
So that is the idea of Violator. It is inspired by a book of the same name written by three women, Shilpa Phadke, Shilpa Ranade, and Samira Khan. So they've written this awesome book. It's really, really, and I wouldn't say an eye opener, but it somehow shows you the mirror. Because everything that they've written in the book, nothing is new. But when you read it so starkly and so bluntly and honestly, then you just realize that you've been living a lie your entire life in the name of safety. And it's about time that you understand that that fear narrative is not something which is helping anyone. Not the women, not the men, not the system, not children, not adults. It's not helping anybody. So might as well change the fear narrative and introduce the narrative of courage, of taking charge of my own choices, and taking the risk to create a world that I want to see during my lifetime.
Yeah. Once I was traveling with two heterosexual men, and we were documenting what people thought about death and dying from where Ganga meets the sea, Bay of Bengal, all the way on top. We were supposed to go, but we stopped at Banaras. And we used to stay in different people's houses or, stay at different places which were interesting to document stuff. And friends would come over. And, because I was closer to these two men, because I was traveling with them, I told them once that, basically they thought that I was just an angry feminist. And like when I had to explain, I just told them that, see, we are a group of 5 people, 4 men, and I'm the one woman. Though I know all of you, but I just can't. My conditioning, like, it can be very personal, but I'm assuming it's for most people, that if I were to just lay down and relax, many of you would have, will get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They'll try to protect me, and especially what you were saying also, it ties into that, that the safety is one, we have to manufacture our own safety. The onus is put on the, other gendered bodies which are non-cis male. And also it is conditional, like you are safe before this time, you're safe in these places, you're safe if you're wearing these things. And I think what you all are doing is challenging just that, like, why should we stop at safety, we should ask for more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to settle for anything less than what a man is getting. Why
Yeah.
should I? Why should my mother tell me that you're in Bombay, at least you can stay out till 12? I don't want to settle for the at least. I want to settle for the at most.
True.
Because I have this one life and I'm going to make the most of it. And I'm not going to live in fear, which you have inculcated in me since childhood. And I followed that for like most of my life.
Yeah. And
So,
not that home is a safe place also, no?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's just a very systemically accepted way to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
women in certain places
So,
only.
in a lot of discussions, it also comes out that, all the um safety and all that is only when there are men involved who are strangers. But when something happens at home or in the neighborhood, then those things are hush hush, and sometimes those things are even allowed to continue,
Yeah.
because then the safety of the woman isn't the priority. The priority is the
Honor of the
family,
family.
the
Yeah.
family and the structure and the this and that shouldn't get disrupted.
Yeah.
So in that case, the safety of the girl is compromised
Yeah.
in a lot of families.
Yeah. And it's always colored as protectionism or care, but it's just keeping people in specific places, and women clearly more restricted than men. And it's very harsh when we talk it out like this, that no, it doesn't happen now, now things are better, but no,
They're
certain
not.
things are still happening. Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, I think 50% of the fear is not just about strange men sexually assaulting women, but also that women wanting to be with a man that the family doesn't approve of.
Yeah, please speak more. Yeah.
So I think a lot of times women are coerced or beaten or scolded or put under house arrest because they actually want to go out and meet the man that they want to meet and have a sexual relationship with. And that also is considered a risk by the family,
Yeah.
even though
Yeah.
the girl wants it. So, there, even her choice and her bodily choices and her sexual choices are compromised or abused in the
Yeah.
name of safety.
True. Yeah, those men are bad, but the man we choose for you,
Yeah.
even after marriage, if he rapes you, it's your duty. But he's not a bad person because he
Yeah.
belongs to the same caste class.
Yeah.
Uh,
And religion.
yeah. Wow. Thank you. Let's go to loitering.
Yes.
Loitering is generally seen as not acceptable for all genders, and
Yeah.
it's seen like a waste of time.
Yeah.
And we are saying that we'll go loiter. And oh, how does yeah.
So basically, what the book says and also what the movement says is that whenever a woman steps out of the house, she needs to have a very good reason for stepping out. She should be either going to work or college or picking up her child from school or going grocery shopping so that she can come home and cook for the family, or going to a mandir or something like that. Okay. And then if she ventures out without any reason, and if something bad happens to her,
Yeah,
then
happens to her. They
ha,
don't say he did to her. It
ha,
happens to her.
it happened. Yeah. Passively it
Yeah.
happened. And so then, of course, she's blamed. I mean, she's the one to be blamed. The victim blaming, this whole thing of victim blaming, that what were you doing there at that hour?
Yeah.
Why did you need to be there?
Yeah.
And didn't you know that if you would be there at that hour wearing what you were wearing, then this will happen to you? So then, even the, I mean, girls are so conditioned that we already start thinking on those lines that, yeah, I was stupid. I shouldn't have been there. What was the need to go there? I could have taken the other way, or I didn't need to go and watch that film because that's just recreational. It was not important. Or I didn't have to sit on that park bench and read a book. I could have sat at home and read the book. Why did I need to go out? So we are constantly curbing our own experience with our universe, with our world, with our society, with fellow human beings, with our cities. We are constantly restricting our own worldview and our experience with the physical world because of this whole victim blaming that we have already assumed, because it has happened so many times.
Yeah.
So then you have to basically move the pendulum to the other extreme and say, I will be out for no reason, and I will loiter, and I will sleep on that park bench even though I have a very cozy bed at home, and I will read that book on that park bench because I can, because it's a free country so far, and I seem to have equal rights as men. So
Yeah.
you shouldn't be coming and telling me that you got sexually harassed because you were sitting on a park bench, because
Right.
that's illogical according to me.
Right.
So you have to basically, when the situation is so bad that it's zero, then you have to try and take it to 100 before it can come to a 50 at some
Mhm.
later point. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but
You are, and in fact, I don't even see that it's going to 100. Like, I'm walking and I want to sit down in a park bench and just rest for some time. I want to sit there and read. I want to have my snack over there.
yeah,
Why do I become the wrong woman if I'm sitting in the park bench in the
yeah.
afternoon? And why do I become approachable for people to just,
What
come
has
talk
my
with me?
gender and what has my sex got to do with my desire to engage with my city?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what
We
what
think
is
public
my
places
gender?
are neutral.
Hmm.
Hmm. They
What is, I
aren't.
mean, why should I experience my city only till 10 p.m.? There is a whole other city for me to experience from 10 p.m. till 6 a.m.,
Yeah.
where the moon is out, where the stars are out, where the pollution is less, where it's colder, there's a breeze, the traffic is not there. I like dark. I don't like to walk around in the sun. So why should anybody be telling me जितना घूमना है 10 बजे के पहले घूम लो? नहीं
Hmm.
यार, मुझे 10 बजे के बाद घूमना है. क्या करोगे?
Yeah. Yeah.
And who is anyone else to decide what my right as a woman should be in terms of, let's first talk about safety, let's first talk about sexual rights, let's first talk about education. I have only one life. I want
Yeah.
all my rights together. I'm greedy.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm greedy. Call me greedy, call me selfish, call me whatever you want, but I want everything in life.
Yeah. Selfish is like the biggest abuse, no, for a woman. Oh, so
Yeah.
selfish. Oh, so
Yeah.
ungrateful.
So
And then we
selfish.
just shrivel.
Wants to roam around at 12 in the night. So selfish.
Yeah, like
Doesn't
doesn't.
care that her parents will be awake at home wondering कि मेरी बेटी कब वापस आएगी, उसके साथ क्या हुआ होगा.
Yeah.
Doesn't think at all about the family.
Yeah. You're bringing out the right to play. Like apart from, okay, we have to fight so hard for the right to work. Like even she mentions in the TED talks, no, Shilpa.
Yeah.
So here we are talking about right to play and just right to be, to occupy general spaces, which everybody does, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I think for me, my first night walk was really therapeutic. Like I had witnessed, like it was in my fear, I could say, was in the cells of my body. I
Yeah.
didn't move to Delhi for many years because like I knew if I went there I'm going to be raped. So it was that strong a fear.
Yeah.
And eventually I just like spent a lot of time in Delhi, almost 2 years later. But this is I'm talking when I was 18, 19. So it was very real fear.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, anytime when I walk, if someone the vehicle came too close, I think it's common experience of many.
Absolutely. Your heartbeat, heart rate increases. You start sweating.
Yeah,
You start thinking of the worst possible scenario.
yeah. One basic stroll is like, one war we are trying to wage, like protect
Yeah.
myself, be careful, assess the situation. And yeah, so I was going to say that my first night walk was actually therapeutic for me. Like I I breathed fully, I could say. And it did help. In
Yeah.
It did help in how I started seeing how the city is, and even questioning, is it as unsafe as it is meant to be, or is it, the scare is more to keep.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask you, like you already mentioned, the book, the authors are three brilliant people: Samira Khan, Shilpa Bhatke, Shilpa Ranade. How did you get a chance to meet them? How are they involved with the movement that, like you've translated theory into action?
Yeah.
So how do they feel about it? Yeah.
So they wrote the book in 2011, and I read the book in 2014. So I missed out on those 3 years, which I could have loitered more. But anyway, I read the book, and I immediately fell in love with the idea and the what they were proposing, that women need to come out and loiter to make cities safer for women, and it made complete sense. Until then, the narrative I was hearing was women need to stay at home to make cities safer for them. And they were saying just the opposite thing, which made so much more sense. It made complete sense. And I was like, I have to do it. I can't just read this book and put it down and be like, Achhi kitab thi, nice. I have
Yeah.
to do it.
Hmm.
I mean, I there was no other way. Like my body was telling me to just do it. So I told my flatmate at that time, I told her about the book, the idea, and everything. And I said, I'm going to loiter on this coming Sunday. I'm going to take my mat, go to a park, lie down there, just chill, not do anything, and come home. Do you want to join me? I
Hmm.
told her, even if you don't come, I am still going to go. But if you come, I'll feel better.
Hmm.
So she said, yeah, yeah, let's do it. So we went and we did exactly that. We took our mats. We took some books with us, which we didn't read because we were busy talking for 3 hours.
Hmm.
We lay down on the grass and we were looking at the sky above us. We were clicking photographs. And imagine, we had not done that before. Such a simple joy, such a simple pleasure
Hmm.
of just laying down on the grass and looking at the sky above you. We had not done it ever. And all around us were men who were doing it. And for
Hmm.
them, it was just like any other day. And for us,
Right.
it was like one revolutionary step. Um, and then we came back and we posted those photos on Facebook and we just hashtagged it while loiter. And then a lot of our female friends started asking, oh my God, this looks so nice. You guys are having so much fun. Why didn't you tell us? We must do it again next Sunday. So
Hmm.
that's how it became like a pattern. I mean, I had not thought that we would keep doing it,
Hmm.
but then so many people were interested to join us, that we thought, okay, we need to make it like a regular practice. So
Hmm.
we kept doing it for 6 months, and we would keep documenting it in photos and videos and keep uploading them on Facebook in an album called While Loiter. And by the end of 6 months, we had almost like 40-50 women who were coming with us. I mean, not each time, but like different
Yeah.
women each time. So then I got really scared because I was like, what if the authors find out and they sue me for using their title as a title for the kind of this practice that we are doing and this album that we are creating? So I said I should better get in touch with them and tell them that this is what we are doing, and be ready to get fired by them and say, why didn't you tell us before? And you can't use this name without our permission and this and that. So I found them on Facebook and I messaged them and I attached some photographs and everything. Within like 15 minutes, all of them replied and they were like ecstatic and they were so happy. And I mean, I didn't have any contact with them before that. I just read the name of the book and, just messaged them. That way, Facebook is good for some reasons.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't know how I would have contacted them. And they were super thrilled and they were like, my God, this is so beautiful. This is exactly what we had dreamed of. Um, and then, they joined us in the next session and they met all the loiterers and they started putting our photos on the Facebook page of the book and started promoting us. They also told a lot of other people that we didn't know about the movement and they would join us. So now it's like one big family, the authors, us, everyone.
Yeah. And this has grown to other cities also, I think, after Mumbai.
Yes.
My first was in Delhi, and then we did one in Hyderabad also. It was not called Why Loiter, but it was called Night Walks.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or
But
women,
the idea
women
is
walk
the
at
same.
midnight.
Yeah.
Yeah, so see, I think, a lot of people ask me that, used to ask me, not anymore, but like after 6 months, 1 year, 2 years even, people would be like, you need to scale it up. You need to scale it up.
Hmm.
So I was like, you know what? I started it for my own pleasure, for my own, um, you know, change of how I was living my life. I did not plan to make it a campaign. I did not plan to make it a movement. And the beauty of loitering is in the personal. And also it cannot be like an NGO that you have a register and then you mark all the people who attended and you mark all the people who were absent, because that kills the whole point of loitering. Loitering has to be more informal, unstructured, fluid, and you can't hold anybody accountable. You did not come for loitering. That
Yeah.
becomes like a classroom then. So I said, listen, you know what, you're looking at it in a very wrong way. I don't have to get 100 women to walk with me.
Yeah.
Even if somebody sees our photographs on Facebook or wherever, we have a blog or Instagram, and she's loitering, let's say, in some other part of the world, but she resonates with the idea and she understands the politics of it and understands the conditioning that we've all been raised with and is ready to challenge it, then she's a loiterer too. So she doesn't have to walk with me, because we might
Exactly.
be all walking in different parts of the world, but we're all walking together.
Yeah.
So there was never an intention to scale it up or, do like a 20,000 women walked with us.
Yeah.
So,
And that is,
like you rightly pointed out, that it kind of rubbed off to other cities and people have been doing it on their own. And of course, there's not a copyright to it. I mean, anyone can do it anytime they want to do it.
the idea is that, right? That
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
should be able to do. Yeah.
And it has grown. The idea has grown, and women more and more are talking about questioning why can't I go out at night? Why can't I wear this dress? Why can't I put red lipstick? Why do I have to wear a bra?
Yeah.
All those
Yeah.
questions are being asked across India and the world. So there is this movement in Pakistan called Girls at Dhabas.
Hmm.
So they also got inspired by the Violator book, and we are in touch. So the girls there and us, we are in touch, and we exchange notes and what we are doing. And Delhi also, Malika Taneja is also doing a lot of walks. So she's a friend of mine. She's been following Violator. In fact, even Pinjra Tod. So I met the Pinjra Tod people in Delhi, and they said that they thought of Pinjra Tod when they read about Violator.
Yeah.
And then why should we restrict girls in the hostels when the boys are not restricted? That's how the whole Pinchra Toad thing started. So a lot of, yeah.
Yeah, I have also submitted my photographs to the girls at the dhaba in
Oh yeah.
Pakistan. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And even in Kashmir, there's one movement like that. Like they just go to parks, sit and read. And yeah, it's beautiful how one book can really literally change lives of so many women and their perception of the world. How has it changed? How has loitering changed your perception of the space and your life also?
So, I mean, like I said earlier, that I also was raised with this sort of understanding that if something happens to me, it's my fault because I
Yeah.
wasn't careful enough, which leads you to actually be very, very weak and scared,
Yeah.
and and because you're guilty, you're feeling guilty, so obviously you will not take any stand because you think you're wrong, and when you think that you're wrong, you're the weakest. But when you think you are right, you're the strongest, no matter what, even if the situation is the same.
Hmm.
So, for
Hmm.
example, there was a loitering session, and me and my friend, we were just walking on the road at about 3 in the night, and both of us were wearing short dresses because we were like, why are girls supposed to wear modest clothes in the night? What
Hmm.
sense does that make? So, we were wearing short clothes. We had red lipstick on because a lot of women also said that, my mother never allowed me to wear red lipstick because she said that only sex workers wear red lipstick. So we were like,
Hmm.
chalo, today we'll all wear red lipstick.
Hmm.
So only two of us were left. It was 3 in the night and we were walking. And this man, he got off a car and he started masturbating on the side of the road.
Hmm.
And and both of us looked at him, and he was also like signaling to us, like all that he was doing. He was a man in his 50s. He had gotten off a nice car, was wearing nice clothes. So we looked at him and then we walked off because that is the conditioning, right? You ignore, you avoid, you don't acknowledge. But then I was like, no, why are we ignoring this? Because we are not doing anything wrong. He's doing something wrong.
Hmm.
So I pulled out my phone from my bag and I pointed
Hmm.
the camera at his penis, and I
Hmm.
started making a video. And I said
Hmm.
that just carry on. It's gonna make a beautiful video, and you're gonna go viral tomorrow.
Hmm.
So he zipped up immediately, and he started running in the opposite direction. And we ran after him, and we were like, "Ruki uncle, kahan ja rahe hain?" It was such a good video, and we are like laughing, and we are calling to him, "Ki aao, wapas aao."
Yeah.
And it was so liberating to
Yeah.
actually not ignore it, confront him, and scare him off with such a simple instrument of a phone, which we already had for so many years. But why did we
Hmm.
ever think of doing this in a situation like this? Because we were feeling guilty
Yeah.
earlier. Oh no, I shouldn't have been here. It's 3 in the night. I'm so stupid. It's all my fault. I should run away from here as soon as possible. If something
Hmm.
happens right now, it's my fault. But because that guilt went away and that victim blaming went away, and we found the strength to say, no, I am not doing anything wrong by being here at 3 a.m. He is
Hmm.
doing something wrong by flashing us.
Yeah.
And I have every right to be here at this hour, just walking on the road with no purpose, wearing a short dress, wearing red lipstick, laughing loudly, without a care in the world. So that anger of he is doing something wrong to me, I'm not doing anything wrong, that gave me the presence of mind and the courage to actually do this.
Yeah.
So so therefore I also tell a lot of women that it's in the doing of things that the change will happen. You can't just sit at home and read about it or post about it
Yeah.
or watch a video of other women walking. That's not going to solve anything. neither will a once in a year candlelight march. You know,
Yeah.
it's not going to change how you intrinsically feel about your conditioning.
Yeah.
I mean, in that sense, I feel like it's also what Gandhi did, right? He just walked. And as he walked and walked and walked, all uh, his politics and his opinions and his views shaped while he walked.
Hmm.
He didn't just sit in one place and come up with all his theories and politics. So the politics is in the doing of it.
Right. And I like how you called it a practice. Like it is really learned behavior.
Yeah.
Every time I have to condition my body to, regulate my emotion, go out, go to these spaces and come back. It's one check and one step. It's really a practice because this fear is so ingrained and
It's
there
so
is guilt
insane.
along with the fear of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. So now with the pandemic,
Yeah.
um, loitering becomes more precious because
Yeah.
public spaces are inaccessible for many of us. So what
Yes.
tips do you have any tips on loitering? Small
Well,
steps people
I actually feel that the social media has been a very good space for women,
Hmm.
because a lot of women who would otherwise not feel liberated enough to come out into a real public space and voice her opinions feels much better doing it on social media. And I see a lot of women making some very important points on social media because it also, you can do it from your home.
Hmm.
uh, in a country where a lot of women are not allowed to be in public gatherings and voice their opinions. So I think during the pandemic, women should make the most of social media to voice their opinions about every issue possible, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's mental health, whether it's whatever issue they want to address, and also kind of strengthen the belief in accessing public spaces and being visible in public spaces as soon as the pandemic gets over.
Yeah, yeah,
I think a lot of women that did not come for loitering because abhi ye ho gaya wo ho gaya ye karna hai wo karna hai, maybe will start coming for the loitering sessions and make it a priority and be like, no, accessing public spaces and being visible in public spaces is important, very important and precious, like you said.
really. And you know, we tend to think that real public space and virtual public space. I'm sure even when you said it, you knew how hazardous um, trolling is or
Yeah.
how unsafe even the cyber world is, and it is a task. Even that can be a practice.
Yeah.
Till, till like you said, to
See, the online space is basically a mirror of the real space,
yeah,
because we are the same people
yeah,
in the same patriarchal world with the same sexist and misogynist views. So even the trolls, what are they trying to do? They're trying to make the women invisible
yeah,
from this virtual public space, just the
yeah,
way they want to make women invisible from the real space.
yeah,
So
physical.
women have to stand up to the trolling as we do to the sexual harassers and stalkers. And
Yeah, yeah, and in fact, it becomes all the more little bit more because they're behind their screens,
yeah, exactly,
and
exactly.
they don't have
It's
like
just that the very physical danger of somebody coming and pressing your breasts or pinching your bum or throwing acid on your face or things like that gets, I mean, that doesn't happen uh,
yeah.
on the virtual space. But yeah, all kind of mental
Yeah,
torture
we still,
and
if I get a rape threat or a death threat, I
ah,
will still consider stepping out or not. So, in
yeah,
a way, it is
exactly.
shaping what I do or not do.
Yeah,
When
yeah, 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 yeah.
so how can people contact you, Neha?
Um, on Facebook or Instagram or on the blog, we have a Violator blog. I haven't been very active on it lately, but I will be. Um, or on my email ID, that's neha m0505 at gmail.com. Yeah, I guess.
Super. Thank you so much for giving an hour of your time and helping me with the technical work, because the screen has broken off my desktop, and nowadays all the speakers are doing the meeting setting. And thank you so much for being so considerate.
No worries. It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, Neha. Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. See you
Bye.
again.
Yes,
Yeah.
you too. Bye.